After telling Sasuke the full truth as he was already leaving this world, Itachi admitted that he had made a grave mistake. He confessed that not telling his brother everything from the very beginning had been the wrong choice. Personally, I don't consider that decision to be a good one, but what if Itachi himself had reached that conclusion much earlier? What if from the very start he had considered a different plan, one carefully thought through from beginning to end? This is an attempt to recreate such a scenario. Of course, this is not a strict theory, but rather a what if, a subjective interpretation of how the story of two brothers might have unfolded if the older one had chosen a different path. Thank you to everyone supporting, and now let's begin. The tension between the village and the Uchiha clan did not fade with time, but instead escalated more and more with each passing day. Soon everything reached its breaking point. Danzo outplayed Shisui, stealing his eye and destroying the plan that relied on Kotomatsukami to control Fugaku and prevent the clan from attacking the village. The Uchiha plan was to take Naruto hostage and use their leader's Manjikyo Sharingan to control Kurama, not as a weapon, but as a deterrent. Their goal was to seize control of the village with as little bloodshed as possible. Danzo feared that this plan would only delay the inevitable, and in truth, he was probably right. He had been waiting for this opportunity for a very long time. It was the chance to permanently eliminate what he believed to be the true threat to the village. The Uchiha clan, a clan born from evil as his master Tobirama Senju had taught him, there was no turning back. Itachi chose the final option, a plan that would avoid open civil war, something he had hated since childhood, and at the same time save Sasuke. But that plan came at a horrifying cost. It required completely destroying the psyche of his 7-year-old brother and leaving him alone in a village ruled by people openly hostile toward the Uchiha. No matter how intelligent someone is, no one can truly predict what will happen next, but even a fool could imagine what such trauma would do to a child. It could lead to suicide or complete mental collapse. From the simplest point of logic, both outcomes were disturbingly likely. There was also the very real possibility that Sasuke would eventually fall into Orochimaru's hands. Believing otherwise was nothing more than a gamble with terrible odds, and yet it happened. After everything was over, Itachi finally admitted the truth. He had made a terrible mistake by not telling Sasuke everything from the beginning. He said that if it were to happen again, he would do things differently. So let us assume that this time he does. Itachi did not want his brother to go through that massacre and decided to take full responsibility for Sasuke's safety himself. Not trusting Danzo or the villagers, he chose to take matters into his own hands. He made a deal with Obito, agreeing to help destroy the Uchiha clan in exchange for Sasuke being taken along and later joining the Akatsuki together with him. At that moment, explaining everything to a 7-year-old child would have served no purpose. Immediately after the massacre, when Sasuke appeared at the edge of the Uchiha district, Tobi emerged behind him and pulled him into the Kamui dimension. Meanwhile, Itachi quietly finished off their parents, promising that he would take care of Sasuke and personally ensure his safety. Later, the teenage Uchiha explained his decision to Hiruzen and was given a mission in return to infiltrate the Akatsuki. Soon after, he officially joined the organization. After learning the rules from Tobi, who at the time pretended to be a foolish and clumsy goofball, the moment came to face the terrified 7-year-old. From the very beginning, Itachi knew this would be a long and painful process. At first, he chose to be as direct as possible. He wanted Sasuke to experience shock in order to awaken his Sharingan. Tobi pulled Itachi into his dimension, and there Itachi bluntly told his brother that he had eliminated the entire Uchiha clan and that Sasuke himself was now considered dead. He then showed him fragments of that truth through his Sharingan. Without another word, he left him there. For several days, Sasuke did not eat and remained in a state of complete shock and disbelief. His Sharingan awakened, yet he still could not accept reality. Eventually, Tobi brought him back into the real world. This time it was Obito who spoke to him, explaining why things had happened the way they did. Obito believed that Sasuke could one day become for the Akatsuki and play a crucial role in their future. His goal was to turn Sasuke against the village, though in truth, very little manipulation was needed. Simply telling the truth was enough. Over time, Sasuke began reacting more calmly and maturely than one would expect from someone so young. Soon after, he began training under the guidance of the masked man. Itachi waited, judging that the time was not yet right to explain the more complex truths. 2 years passed. Sasuke slowly began to accept his fate and the reality he lived in, though he still did not fully understand why everything had happened or how the world truly worked. Questions continued to form in his mind without end. After all, he was still just a child, unfinished and unshaped. During that time, Sasuke remained under constant supervision, staying alongside Obito and Zetsu, who kept watch over him. Eventually, Itachi arrived, deciding that the moment had finally come to take the first step. The instant Sasuke saw his older brother, he attacked him with all the strength he had. Naturally, it was nothing compared to Itachi's power. Itachi Itachi allowed him to vent his anger until Sasuke had nearly exhausted all of his chakra and collapsed from fatigue. Only then did Itachi tell him the entire truth, repeating much of what Tobi had already said while carefully explaining, between the lines, why everything had to happen the way it did. Hearing this only deepened Sasuke's hatred, this time directed at the village itself. Without hesitation, he concluded that Itachi had been used as a tool by Konoha, though he still could not understand his brother's decision. From the perspective of a 9-year-old Uchiha, the clan could have taken control of the village, and Fugaku should have ruled it. Itachi continued trying to explain the mechanisms of conflict, war, villages, and the future, but he also understood that words alone could not convey everything, especially not at that moment. Sasuke needed to experience the world for himself in order to make his own decisions someday. Itachi did not want his brother to become a criminal who tied his future to the Akatsuki, but he also refused to force him into anything. He chose instead to show him how the world worked and allow Sasuke to decide for himself, accepting whatever path he chose. At the same time, Itachi was fully aware that Obito would continue steering Sasuke toward hatred in order to exploit his power in the future. Unfortunately, Itachi could not control everything, as he still had his own missions to carry out. During one of those missions, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen was killed in battle against the young Mizukage. Shortly afterward, Orochimaru unexpectedly appeared within the organization. He was one of the main reasons Itachi could never leave his younger brother alone in the village, at the mercy of fate and incompetent, irresponsible shinobi. As history would later prove, Itachi was right. The Serpent Master had been scheming from the very beginning. He listened, observed, and gathered information until he eventually learned that another Uchiha would soon become part of the organization. Itachi had always been his primary obsession, but Orochimaru was also eager to place his hands on a backup plan. That backup plan was the younger brother. He began circling closer to Itachi, but he had no intention of revealing all his cards immediately. Reaching for the Sharingan too early would have been a massive risk, one that could cost him everything at once. Instead, he carefully observed the former Aembu member from Konoha waiting patiently. Eventually, he learned where to find exactly what he was looking for. One day, he went to Tobi's hideout, confident that he would find only 10-year-old Sasuke there. And indeed, Sasuke was present. However, Itachi knew perfectly well what the Serpent Master desired. Orochimaru's ambitions were so obvious that Itachi did not need much time to think. Orochimaru himself could no longer restrain his urges. A battle broke out. This time, the Serpent Master was not part of the future plans of any of the 3 Uchiha present. Obito was there as well, and he judged Orochimaru to be a potential threat to both himself and to the gem he was polishing so carefully, Sasuke. Still unaware of the true extent of the Sharingan's power, Orochimaru was quickly defeated. Obito did not allow him to escape and severed his head, believing that this was the end of the legendary Sannin once and for all. Sasuke witnessed everything. For the first time, he felt safer within the organization, and more importantly, he began to understand why he had been taken from the village he now despised. When Sasuke turned 13, he began to assimilate more deeply into the Akatsuki. He even started forming his own opinions about each of its members. Deidara, being the closest to him in age, stood out the most. His goofy humor was not really Sasuke's style, but he was the one who talked to him most often. He constantly bragged about his art and tried to convince Sasuke that it was far superior to the Sharingan. Despite considering him an idiot, Sasuke could not deny that he liked him at least a little. Sasori was a strange man, and Sasuke was not even sure if he was human anymore. He spoke very little. Hidan, on the other hand, was very strange. He said outright that he hated children, so Sasuke avoided him. Kakuzu was the strangest and at the same time the most ordinary among them. At first glance, he appeared to be just a loud, rough man who frequently argued with Deidara, Hidan, or Sasori. However, after witnessing one of their arguments end with an enraged Sasori impaling Kakuzu through the chest while Hidan laughed in delight, Sasuke began avoiding him entirely. Kisame, on the other hand, treated Sasuke with a great deal of respect, and that respect was mutual. He was strong, spoke only when necessary, and did what needed to be done, occasionally throwing in a loose joke during heated arguments. What annoyed Sasuke most was Kisame's habit of speaking in vague, roundabout ways that made it impossible to tell what he truly meant. Tobi was the person who annoyed Sasuke the most. He followed him everywhere and constantly drove him insane. Sasuke tried to kill him more than once, but his attacks never had any effect. Sasuke's goal became finding a way to get rid of that boil, as Tobi himself liked to call it. Sasuke was aware that Tobi was not Madara himself, and that Guru was attached to the masked man's body. Sometimes Tobi was nothing more than an empty shell used to spy on him, and he did not even try to hide it. Pain had never spoken to Sasuke directly. Whenever he wanted to say something about him or address him, he would speak to Itachi instead, as if Sasuke could not understand anything. This infuriated Sasuke and only strengthened his desire to prove his usefulness to the organization and earn the leader's recognition. He increasingly admired Pain's ideals. Konan, in contrast, appeared cold on the surface, but in her own way, she tried to look after Sasuke. She felt different from the others because she was simply human, without the same darkness carved into her character. In a place like Akatsuki, that was the most unsettling thing of all. On one hand, she irritated Sasuke Sasuke because she opposed any participation he might have in missions or deeper involvement in the organization's affairs. On the other hand, he could sense warmth from her and a genuine desire to protect him from something he did not yet fully understand. By the age of 15, Sasuke, under the guidance of two Uchiha, had become highly proficient with the Sharingan and the katana he often trained with in his free time alongside Kisame. Over those years, he completed several missions, most of them alongside Tobi. There were also occasional assignments with Deidara, whose constant showing off often caused additional problems. Missions with Kisame, on the other hand, were always precise and carried out perfectly according to plan. Eventually, the moment came when Pain summoned Itachi and Sasuke. Once again, he addressed only the older brother, which slowly drove the younger one insane. Pain assigned them a mission to finally eliminate Orochimaru. As intelligence suggested, he was nearing the end of his physical endurance before needing to switch bodies. They already knew that Orochimaru had survived their earlier trap when he attacked Konoha and killed Hiruzen. Recent information indicated that he was now desperately seeking the Sharingan, so desperate in fact that he had begun cooperating with Danzo, who was partially responsible for the information leak. Kabuto himself was also involved, deliberately luring the Akatsuki into a trap in order to obtain the body of an Uchiha. Both sides were fully aware of each other's intentions, yet confrontation was unavoidable. Neither side could afford to back down any longer. The Serpent Master knew that Kakuzu, Haiden and Sasori had recently died. He also knew that Deidara had been eliminated by Sasuke himself. On top of that, the remaining Akatsuki members were busy capturing the Jinchuriki. He was also aware of Tobi's existence after their last encounter, when Tobi had surprised him by cutting off his head. Because of this, Orochimaru believed there was a strong chance that one of the three would appear. He had no issue with that and confidently awaited them. Pain sent Sasuke and Itachi to the designated hideout. On the way there, Itachi began a conversation with his brother. They always talked a lot, but this time Sasuke sensed that Itachi had a specific purpose behind his words. Sasuke asked him what he thought of Pain's plan to create a weapon from the Ten Tails in order to control the world and end endless conflict. Itachi replied that he was devoted to the cause and believed it was the only way for real change to occur. He had no faith in peace talks, as such attempts had failed even with their own clan. In his view, among humans there would always be someone in power who wanted more. Sasuke believed that people were greedy, like pigs at a trough that was never enough for them. He believed they were like rats who, when the ground beneath them began to burn, would look out only for themselves, leading to even greater suffering for everyone else. Therefore, he concluded that a single, absolute authority controlling everything was the only solution. Itachi did not respond and instead appeared deep in thought. Soon after, they arrived at Orochimaru's hideout only to find it completely empty. The corridors were silent and the vast chambers stood deserted. That was until they noticed a small snake that seemed to be trying to lead them somewhere. Itachi looked at Sasuke, activated his Sharingan, and warned him that from this point on they needed to remain fully alert. Eventually, they reached a torchlit chamber where Orochimaru stood waiting for them, making no attempt to hide. On the contrary, he was grinning from ear to ear. Moments later, Danzo emerged from the shadows as well. Kabuto observed everything from a safe distance. The Serpent Master was confident. He believed the inexperienced Sasuke would deal with Danzo while he himself would confront Itachi, possibly with Kabuto's support. Having learned his lesson from the last encounter, Orochimaru closed his eyes, wary of Genjutsu, and charged straight at the older brother. At first, the fight unfolded cautiously, with none of the participants revealing their trump cards. After a short while, Itachi decided there was no reason to take risks. His endurance had already dropped dangerously low at this stage of his life. He needed to end this quickly. He could not activate Susanoo, as they were inside a cave with a low ceiling, and using such massive amounts of chakra would also conflict with his future plans. At the same time, Itachi kept a close eye on Sasuke's fight with Danzo. Driven by hatred for his clan, Sasuke tried to tear Danzo apart with his katana. After a brief exchange, Itachi managed to pin Orochimaru against the wall. At that moment, Orochimaru opened his eyes. Itachi found this strange, but he knew it was not a clone. Without hesitation, he activated Tsukuyomi. It turned out to be a perfectly executed trap. The one caught in Tsukuyomi was Danzo. The one Sasuke had been fighting from the very beginning was Orochimaru. A simple body substitution technique had proven extremely effective. To Itachi's surprise, after enduring the torture of Tsukuyomi, Danzo reappeared unharmed in another location. Only then did Itachi realize that Danzo possessed multiple hidden Sharingan. That brief moment was all Orochimaru needed. He transported Sasuke into his own dimension and attempted to take over his body. Once again, the Serpent Master was shocked. Despite fully acknowledging the power of the Sharingan and carefully planning ahead, even within his own domain, his jutsu was completely overwhelmed, especially when faced with power born from hatred, wielded by someone as consumed by grief and rage as Sasuke. Orochimaru was defeated yet again. Kabuto, after a moment of confusion and disbelief, fled the battlefield. Danzo remained behind. Exhausted, Itachi left him to his brother. During the fight, he explained how Danzo's technique worked and and warned Sasuke not to kill him. Sasuke, however, could not restrain himself. In the end, he attempted to finish off the man most responsible for the massacre of the Uchiha. Danzo tried to self-destruct, but from a distance Itachi interrupted him with genjutsu. Despite Itachi's wishes, Sasuke delivered the final blow. At that moment, Tobi appeared beside Danzo's body using Kamui, clapping sarcastically and congratulating them on a job well done. He then absorbed Danzo's corpse into his dimension and announced that Pain was already moving against Konoha. He added that after a short rest, new orders would follow. Tobi disappeared and Itachi immediately told Sasuke that they needed to move without delay. Eventually, they reached the Leaf Village, walking through its streets hidden beneath dark cloaks. Itachi wanted to show his brother life inside the village, its future, innocent civilians, shinobi fighting for a cause, and most importantly, the children who represented what was yet to come. Sasuke, however, remained silent, his expression darkening. It was the first time in nearly 10 years that he had seen the village. He remembered it as far more grim and hateful than what now lay before his eyes. Next, Itachi led him to the outskirts of the village, hiding atop the trees to observe. Soon after, Pain descended from the sky and completely destroyed Konoha. Despite desperately wanting to intervene, Itachi knew that in his current condition, he stood no chance against Pain. If he tried to fight, both he and his brother could lose their lives. The entire situation was meant to demonstrate that people were worth believing in, and that most of them were capable of uniting and abandoning selfishness. What unfolded was the perfect counter-argument to everything Sasuke had denied for so long. People were dying one after another, refusing to give up information about Naruto. Sasuke barely remembered the boy. Then Naruto appeared. He first defeated Pain's main body. After that, he brought everyone in the village back from the dead. That level of determination and sacrifice shocked Sasuke and impressed even Itachi. What Sasuke witnessed far exceeded his expectations. His mind became a storm of confusion, filled with more questions than answers. Yet Itachi achieved what he had intended. He showed Sasuke that Pain's path was not the only correct one. He forced him to consider multiple possible paths forward. After Pain's defeat, Obito knew that it was finally time to make his move. He had always kept a close eye on Itachi and knew very well that his body was weakening for reasons unknown to others. The battles against Orochimaru and Danzo had only confirmed his suspicions. Obito decided that Sasuke and Kisame would be sent to retrieve the 8 tails. Itachi had anticipated this outcome long before it happened. He knew that Obito would eventually try to get rid of him at the right moment. He was also aware of Kotomatsukami and of the fact that he was being watched. Because of that, Itachi had recently been pretending to be far weaker than he truly was. He wanted the fake Madara to finally commit to fighting him. When the time came, they first spoke openly about the differences in their beliefs. As was typical for him, Obito eventually revealed his true plan as well as his intentions towards Sasuke soon after the battle began. After using Tsukuyomi, Itachi was far from being at full strength, yet he still moved better than Obito had expected. After Pain's defeat, Obito knew that it was finally time to make his move. He had always kept a close eye on Itachi and knew very well that his body was weakening for reasons unknown to others. The battles against Orochimaru and Danzo had only confirmed his suspicions. Obito decided that Sasuke and Kisame would be sent to retrieve the 8 tails. Itachi had anticipated this outcome long before it happened. He knew that Obito would eventually try to get rid of him at the right moment. He was also aware of Kotomatsukami and of the fact that he was being watched. Because of that, Itachi had recently been pretending to be far weaker than he truly was. He wanted the fake Madara to finally commit to fighting him. When the time came, they first spoke openly about the differences in their beliefs. As was typical for him, Obito eventually revealed his true plan as well as his intentions towards Sasuke. Soon after the battle began. After using Tsukuyomi, Itachi was far from being at full strength, yet he still moved better than Obito had expected. It almost seemed as if he was deliberately prolonging the fight. Tobi sensed that something was wrong. Itachi's attacks did not aim to eliminate him at all. Because of this, Obito found it difficult to fully focus on the duel. Instead, he kept wondering why Itachi was fighting purely defensively and why his attacks were designed only to neutralize him. Despite his endurance enhanced by Hashirama's cells, Obito could feel the toll this battle had taken on him. At that moment, he understood that Itachi's goal had not only been to wear him down, but also to die in front of Sasuke. Itachi wanted his brother to witness his death so that the Mangekyou Sharingan would awaken. He knew that this power would allow Sasuke to defeat the fake Madara who threatened the future of the world. And he was right. The young Uchiha immediately launched himself at Obito. Not wanting to prolong the fight, Obito partially removed his mask and used Kotomatsukami, attempting to impose absolute obedience. However, instead of the intended effect, another Kotomatsukami emerged from Sasuke's body. An interaction never before seen occurred as two opposing powers reacted to each other at the same moment. This was yet another step in Itachi's plan. Both Dojutsu were destroyed. Obito responded with a confident, mocking laugh and retreated using Kamui. Sasuke's transformation plan had worked perfectly. First, he had been influenced by two opposing paths that taught him how to live. Itachi, who spoke of unity, the shinobi community, and cooperation, and Obito, who preached revenge and justice against the village. Added to that was Pain, a man Sasuke admired, who had sought revolution through absolute control. Before the attack on Konoha, Sasuke had never viewed the village from a perspective he did not already know. He realized then that everything Itachi had told him throughout his life held some truth. At the same time, he could not rid himself of his hatred toward Konoha and the shinobi system. That began to change when he witnessed the villagers' reaction to Pain's assault. He saw their cooperation, their selflessness, their unity, and their faith. Naruto's heroic stand showed him that the world was not as black and white as Obito had claimed. Pain himself admitted his mistake through defeat. Even so, Sasuke's resentment toward the village could not simply disappear. The words of the masked man still held logical weight. However, everything was different now. Itachi knew his time was running out. He carefully manipulated his remaining strength so that Obito would be convinced this was the perfect moment to eliminate him. In truth, Itachi still possessed enough will and power to endure until the right moment. That moment came when Sasuke returned, witnessed his death, awakened his power, and redirected all of his hatred toward a common enemy shared with the village, the fake Madara. At the same time, Itachi destroyed a power he believed should never belong to either side, Kotoa Matsukami. Now the young Uchiha was forced to return to the village. He wanted to meet the blonde hero of Konoha. He wanted to defeat Madara and see how the world truly worked with his own eyes. Only then would he decide what path to take. He knew that at first he would most likely be captured. He also knew that the approaching threat and their shared enemy would not allow the village to waste his strength. He chose to take the risk. Meanwhile, Kabuto injected himself with Orochimaru's DNA, becoming partially him. Soon after, he formed an alliance with Obito, who eliminated Konan. Not long after that, the Fourth Great Ninja War began. From that point on, history followed the path shaped by Black Zetsu, Madara, Hagoromo, and Kaguya. In the end, Sasuke was guided onto the path he chose himself without the need for extreme psychological or physical torture. He reached that conclusion through the example personally shown to him by the brother who raised him, and in that sense, Itachi succeeded.